Captain Fritz got in your face, actually, didn't he?
Yes. Captain Fritz. I met Captain Fritz that night, November the 22nd. Never had seen or heard of the man. Didn't know anything about him. He was a little short man. Red face. Captain Will FRITZ, I'm sure, and all the time he worked for the Dallas Police Department, I'm sure he did a lot of good things for them. But the way he treated me was totally uncalled for. Because I'd never been in any type of trouble of any type. When he come in, and when he came into the room where I was, he had a piece of paper, standard size typing paper. And he gave me a pen, he said, sign this. Well, I started to read that, and he wanted me to confess to being part of the JFK assassination. I told him, I said, I'm not going to sign it. I said, this is ridiculous. Well, he drew his hand back to hit me, and I did my arm up like this, because he was like over here where Mr. Aynesworth is, and blocked. And I told him, I said, you know, there's some policemen outside that door there, but I said, before they get in there, I said, we're going to have one hell of a fight. And I said, I'm going to get some licks in on you. I said, I'm not signing that. Well, then he reached over and snatched it up, started wadding it up as he snatched it up, and stomped out the room. And I never did see the man anymore after that.
How many hours did they actually hold you?
Well, they picked me up early afternoon, and they started to let me go home around 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock. And then they got a call, and they brought me back to the station, and then when they brought me back, same two detectives, Rose and Stovall, and my sister was with me, by the way. Then that's where they fingerprinted me and did the routine mug shot, the whole routine. And I went through some more questioning. Time I got out of there and got home, it was the early hours of Saturday morning. It's an ordeal I've never forgotten.
Well, and then later on, when you went before the Warren Commission, they sort of gave you a tough time too, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Explain that to us.
Okay, my sister and I, we went, as I said, my sister, Miss Lady Mae Frazier Randall, they arranged for us to come to Washington, D.C. to testify before the Warren Commission. And we both testified, and during my testimony, they would ask me things, and they would try to get me to change my testimony to what they wanted. And when I would not do this, now here's the catcher. Listen to this real well. They said, oh, he doesn't know. He's just mistaken. Well, that to me, it just said, you just seem to punch me in the face, because I've never forgotten that. And I read some of their comments. How could someone that wasn't even there know all the answers? I don't know all the answers, and I don't know anybody does. But when you testify before somebody and you tell them the truth, and they don't like your answer, oh, he's mistaken, he just doesn't know.
But they were trying to get you to explain why you didn't notice the gun in the back of the car.
Because there was no gun. That's what they wouldn't buy. The police department here in Dallas didn't do it, and neither did they. And while we were there testifying before the Warren Commission, my sister and I both had to make bags what we saw that day for only just a glance from our memory. We didn't have a. All the thing we had was a pair of scissors and tape and paper, and we had to make. I can't tell you how many bags I made. And what they couldn't understand how they could come so close to what I said. It was entirely different than what they wanted me to say. I'll be quite frankly with you, I don't know how the rifle got in the building, and I don't think they do either. Because if they did, they wouldn't be asking me. They'd already know. But then again, they might ask me to see what I tell them. I would tell them. So I really didn't think too much about going up to Washington and testifying before the Warren Commission. I will say this, a congressman by the name of Gerald Ford, he came by and he spent some time with my sister and I during our short lunch break there while we were testifying in the Warren Commission. And I don't know whether you're Republican or Democrat, that doesn't make any difference to me. Mr. Ford showed us the courtesy that I thought was very, very well. He did very well. The thing that was so shocking, our own now was then president, our vice president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, he never gave you 1 minute of his time. And I often ask myself, I know the President of the United States and the Vice President are very busy. They have a lot of things to do. But if something so important, why couldn't he take just a few minutes and come by and see how my sister and I was doing? That's the first time we'd ever been to Washington. That's the first time we'd ever been on an aircraft. And you're surrounded by people you don't know. And I'll tell you what, one thing I got out of this, and I'll always carry it with me. I have a hard time trusting people today. Because before this happened, I grew up in a small town where everybody knew everybody, and you were friends, and everybody was your friend, and you knew what they were thinking. But then, the thing that I moved to Dallas, moved to Irving, and worked in Dallas, and then this tragedy happened. And the things that I encountered, I will never forget.
Well, Buell, I think that these people will want to know about your relationship with Lee. What did you talk about? What kind of guy was he? I'm sure they're interested in that.
It's a good question, Mr. Aynesworth. Lee was a very quiet person. He was very dedicated in whatever he was doing. He was a quick learner. He was very smart. I know some people say, well, if you're an order filler, you don't have to be the sharpest knife in town. Well, I've got news for you. When you're dealing with hundreds of titles, and at that time we covered a 5-state area. It was New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Public schools as well as colleges. We had every type of textbook there that you could think of. Well, it was people that worked there in the warehouse, but everybody couldn't be an order filler because it was just too much to grasp. You had to be a quick learner, and you had to get things right. Mr. Shelley was a great boss, but I mean, he run a tight ship. He didn't want a lot of arrows. You had a lot of orders to fill every day. Lee was a type of man that he wasn't a big talker. He wouldn't initiate a conversation, but if you'd asked him something, he would tell you. He would answer you. Now, I know on several occasions that he tried to eat his lunch in the break room where the guys played cards and dominoes, and he tried to mix in with them, but that didn't go too well. And the reason why was because let's just take any one of you and myself and Lee, we had witnessed something that had happened, say like out there on Houston Street, going by Texas school bus. And if we was to each sit down and tell the group actually what went on out there, so if there was an accident or something, well, they would be able to understand you probably and relate to what you were saying, and myself. But then when Lee would tell it, Lee told it, he was telling the truth, but the words he would use to describe what actually happened. And then, naturally, they didn't understand some of the vocabulary he used, so therefore, they would kind of make fun of him. He was the joke of the day. But he never was a joke to me because he was a lot of help to me.
Did he ever discuss politics or Mr. Kennedy or anything?
No,
specific?
one time when we was going home from work, he asked me, he said, do you follow politics? I said, no. I said, I'm not interested in politics. And I said, you probably wonder why. I said, well, you know, people are politicians. I said, you can't trust them. Because I said, they'll lie to you. And I said, I don't want any part of that business. I said, my life and what I'm doing is more important than trying to figure out where a politician is telling me the truth or not. I said, I don't give them the time of day. And that was all we ever talked about. Now, back and forth on our rides out on Friday, you know, we talked about the traffic, the weather, just general things, nothing.
Talked about his kids a lot, didn't you?
Yes, he did. Now, the thing is, if I wanted to get him to talking, I would ask him, I said, well, are you looking forward to playing? See, Marina, they had one child, and she was pregnant with the second one. And I think the second one was born right before the assassination,
Right
was it
before.
not? That I didn't know until later. But I knew he had the one child. And he would chuckle, he would think about something, and he would tell you something funny that they had done together, something they had shared. But Lee was a type of man that my three little nieces used to go down the street about half a block, and there was a big oak tree there, and he used to play with the kids in the neighborhood. And I used to hear my little nieces talk about Lee, that they thought he was a nice man and he was kind. And I know that a lot of publications you read about Lee Oswald, you probably never heard that line, that he played with children and he was very kind. But he was. That's something I might think about Lee. What he'd be like today, how he would adjust to what's going on in the last 50 years. But we'll never know that because we know all what happened on Sunday morning when Jack Rubenstein, also known as Jack Ruby, in the basement of the police building, walked up and shot Lee, and Lee died a short time later over at Parkland Hospital.
Well, Buell, I guess people might be tired of hearing you and me. Let's take a few questions.
Sure.
Package in the back. We all assume it's assassination rifle. If that wasn't in your back seat, I think I'm a little unsure. How did it get there? I mean, what was he putting in that back seat? It wasn't curtain rods, so what was it? I mean, can you help us with that? What it could have been?
Yes. First thing, no one knows what was in that bag but Lee. The second thing, if it wasn't the rifle in the bag, which we know it cannot be, because if he was to take the Italian Concarno rifle and take the barrel off of the stock, it would not fit in that bag that I described. And so, therefore, the next question, how did it get into the Texas School Book Depository? That's a very good question. I don't have a clue, and a lot of other people I don't think know either. Somebody probably knows, but nobody's going to tell you that.
Is it possible that just the fact that you glanced over your right shoulder didn't really give
I can understand your question there, but the thing is, again, the way he carried the package after he left the car, you would have seen the barrel sticking up above his shoulder. Mr. Aynesworth and I, we both worked for History of America tours for what was about 3 years. And one of the people that was on the panel with us is also another writer by the name of Josiah Thompson. He some way found a Italian Concordo rifle, and he brought it to the meeting where we were meeting there with the people that had signed up for the History of America tour, the JFK tour. And there's no way taking the barrel off of the stock. You could put it in a bag 24 to 26 inches long. There's no way you could.
Yeah, you've answered, as far as the size of it and everything, and like you said, you didn't just see it over your shoulder, you saw him leave the car with it and everything, correct? But the man back there said something I have never heard before. Did they really say, is that legitimate, that there was no need for the curtain rods at the house where he lived in Dallas?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. What I found out, and that I did not know at that time, that the room that he rented on Beckley there, it already had curtains in the room. Since I had never been there, I've never been in the Proven House even today, I would not know that.
I was there that afternoon, and there were very nice curtain rods. There was no need for curtain rods.
So, getting to what the three questions answered so far, and I've told you there's no way that rifle, you could break it down and it'd fit in that bag. So, what some people think
Excuse me.
is that I'm lying about it, but I'm not. My eyesight was 20/20 then, it's 20/20 now with glasses on, and I guarantee you, from a boy growing up in the country that used to hunt, I would know a rifle when I saw one.